Gamar Chatima Tova.
Gamar Chatima Tova.
And Shana Tova to everyone. So it may not be a great idea to talk about food as we begin a fast, but I remain convinced that the way to the Jewish heart is through the stomach. And I know that I'm not alone. Tomorrow we're going to hear from esteemed member of our congregation, Sharon Kurtzman, who is the daughter of survivors. She's going to share beautiful testimony with us. And part of that testimony is really how food holds at least some of the keys to Jewish survival. So I'm going to go for it. So I was incredibly blessed to grow up in a home that celebrated Shabbat every Friday night, which included a homemade braided challah on the table, lovingly placed on its ceremonial plate with a decorative cloth on top. And there is nothing like the smell of a challah baking in the oven. Heaven. And I know it holds multitudes for so many of us, collective and personal memory, the warmth of Shabbat, and an unambiguous sense of blessing and abundance. While I am willing to bet money that my mom's gluten-free challah is the best on earth, even if you're eating a store-bought challah or one of the precious loaves that your children or grandchildren baked at preschool, challah tastes like Shabbat, pure and simple. But have you ever considered why we braid that delicious Shabbat bread? Why does that braided loaf have such a hold on us? And what does it have to teach us as we sit here on this holiest night of the year? So I'll share some of my musings with you, but first, I want to share another image of braiding that I've been holding close over this last year. The carefully braided hair of the female hostages who were released from Gaza and returned home to Israel on January 25th, 2025, after 477 days in captivity. Some of you may have watched the reunion videos and wept like me, tears of gratitude, relief, compassion, and sheer joy as Liri Albag, Naama Levi, Karina Ariev, and Daniela Gilboa reunited with their families. Watching those videos, there was such a felt sense for so many of us that these brave young women were all our children, our family, home at last. Back to the braids of these remarkable young women who returned home after surviving the unimaginable. Several news reports and social media posts mentioned that before this group of hostages were brought home, their friend and fellow captive, Agam Berger, braided the hair of the young women who were being released, even though Agam had to stay behind in Gaza. Agam's mother said it was her way of sending them off with love and strength. Agam was released a few days later, and thank God is home safely now. But imagine the courage of that act of braiding amidst so much violence, uncertainty, and fear. Imagine the tenderness, the dignity, and the care. Imagine her braiding her friend's hair, even knowing that her own freedom hung in the balance. In Israel and around the world, these braids became a symbol of strength, love, humanity, and resilience in the face of grief and terror. I imagine that for the hostages themselves, braiding their hair, even in such dire circumstances, provided a small sense of autonomy and dignity when everything else had been stripped away. One released hostage said, "It felt like Agam was sharing a piece of her strength with me through my braids." This past year, I learned a beautiful interpretation of Tikkun Olam, commonly translated as repairing or fixing the world. And I learned this interpretation from a French rabbi, a conservative French rabbi, Rabbi Delphine Orvilleur. And Rabbi Orvilleur teaches that in addition to meaning to repair or to fix, the Kabbalistic, the Jewish mystical origins of the word litakein or tikkun actually means to braid. Many Jews, myself included, were raised on the centrality of Tikkun Olam in our Judaism. It's our Jewish raison d'etre. So as the mystical story goes, in the creation of the world, God's light so powerfully filled the void that it shattered the existing vessels, embedding sparks of light in countless broken shards. And our mission as Jews is to pick up the broken pieces, find the sparks of light within, and use them to fix the world. But Rabbi Orvilleur cautions us against centering Judaism around fixing the world. We know the world is broken in a million pieces, she says, but Tikkun Olam is actually about learning to live in a world with all its brokenness. And instead of ignoring the brokenness on one hand, or presuming that we can put all the pieces back together again, like Humpty Dumpty, that tikkun is more like braiding the pieces together, reconnecting what was split apart. And in weaving these disparate pieces, we give form to what would otherwise be a collection of broken shards. So said differently, it's not about repairing what is incomplete or broken, but rather learning to weave the pieces together in a way that we can live with the brokenness more adaptively and harmoniously. Rabbi Sharon Cohen-Anisfeld, Dean of Hebrew College in Boston, also inspired by Rabbi Orvilleur's astute teaching, muses, maybe there's something about the metaphor of fixing that has gotten us in trouble. Maybe there's something about it that has gotten unhelpfully bound up with American fix-it-ism. The world is not a broken appliance or a piece of furniture in need of our fixing. And I'm pretty sure if it is broken, it is the height of hubris to think we are going to fix it. What if the tikkun, the world, and we ourselves need is not fixing, but braiding? A return to the awareness in the deepest part of our being that we are all interconnected. In July, Rabbi Eric and I were on our way out west for our summer vacation. We boarded our flight at RDU, and it was obvious from all of those reunion t-shirts of a significant number of folks on our flight that we were traveling with a large group that knew each other well. It turns out that this sweet group of mostly seniors was from Fayetteville on a church trip. In any case, a couple hours into the flight, in the row right in front of us, one of the elderly gentlemen from this group lost consciousness and slumped over onto his beloved wife. His wife started shouting for help. Is there a doctor? Somebody help. There were a few Jesuses thrown in there as well, but you get the point. Within a minute or two, a team of three, 2 doctors and a nurse, who had never met each other before, rose from their respective seats and braided themselves together to care for this man. Without asking names or credentials, this extraordinary group of strangers moved calmly and purposefully into action, staying with the passenger until he was stabilized and the flight landed. All I could do was watch in awe as a witness to the braiding of these humans together. These medical professionals were not on duty. They may have been heading on vacation like me and Rabbi Eric or to visit friends, but when the need arose, they met the moment and directed their strength and care to people in distress, weaving strands together, just like Agam's braids. The same choreography comes together in our Beth Meyer community all the time, and I am very fortunate, just like I was on that plane, to observe it up close and watch the magic unfold. This summer, I learned of a congregant who can no longer drive to shul, but wants to attend services on Shabbat mornings. I sent an email to our Mitzvah Rides team. Did you know we have a Mitzvah Rides team? And within a few days, we had the next several months of Shabbat rides covered. Another example, a congregant's father died in New York. She came back home to sit Shiva, but she lives pretty far outside Raleigh city limits. And unsure if we would have a minyan, our staff made a few calls to congregants who live in that neck of the woods, folks who had never met this congregant. And a minyan was made. It happens all the time around here. People remember that we need each other. And in moments of potential difficulty and disconnection, they braid the world together once again. Now, I want to be clear. We couldn't restore our congregant's ability to drive herself to shul, nor could we bring back the congregant's father who died. These are not fixable problems. But what we could do, like Agam Berger, was braid our community together in such a way that offered care, comfort, and strength in otherwise challenging situations. We could braid the pieces together and make life a little less lonely and a little less difficult for one another. There's one more way I want to drive home this conceptual understanding of Tikkun Olam that I imagine we can all relate to. I contend that people are not broken. No one is broken. This is simply not a Jewish idea. Bones break, but people don't. People are complicated, all of us. And we make mistakes, all of us. And we exhibit frailty and moral failing, all of us. But none of that renders us broken. We are humans, and at times we may be brokenhearted, but we're never broken. And as such, we are not here to fix each other. Your parent, who because of their own life circumstances and limitations still doesn't get you after all these years, you can't fix them. Your sibling, who continues to bug the crap out of you, can't fix them. Your kid, who keeps making the same mistake, can't fix them. And the list goes on. But here's what we can do. We can be braiders, letting the complex and imperfect people in our lives know that we are here for them, that they are not alone. We can support one another as we all endeavor to heal and grow. We can draw close to our people when they are struggling, expressing love and compassion, even when it might feel more pleasant to stand apart. We can hold their hands. We can pray for them. We can give advice when asked. We can braid ourselves together in an act of tikkun olam, not to fix, but rather to coexist more harmoniously with what is necessarily flawed and incomplete. Back to the challah. Where did the tradition of braiding the bread come from, and what does it mean? Classic, like most Jewish questions, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. There is no definitive answer. Trust me, I did my research, but we Jews are never short on interpretations. So in medieval times, it was common throughout Eastern Europe to braid all types of baked goods. And so one theory is that Jewish bakers, wanting to make their chalot special, different from their daily bread, may have taken on that regional tradition of braiding it and incorporated it into their Shabbat ritual. Seems simple enough. But why braid a 6-strand challah, as is traditional? A Hasidic teaching holds that the 6 days of the week are each isolated days until they're brought together with the culminating celebration of Shabbat. So combining 6 strands of dough into one loaf is symbolic of unity, weaving together the days of our week and the days of our lives. You can find countless other explanations for various numbers of strands of dough, but what they all have in common is that the braid symbolizes a gathering of disparate parts that make for a better world. Embedded in the challah is this reminder of why we're here, Tikkun Olam, to braid. So friends, the next time you go pick up your Shabbat challah at Whole Foods or BJ's, Beth Meyer Preschool, or maybe you fly it in from your favorite bakery in New Jersey, and the next time you sit down for Shabbat dinner with chalot gracing your table, here is what I want you to remember. I want you to look at the braided challah and remember Agam. Remember the tenderness and care that she extended to her friends in a moment of grave uncertainty, the blessings of hope, healing, and wholeness that she braided into their hair. Remember the first responders, health professionals, teachers, nurses, social workers, all the unsung heroes that amidst the strife and polarization in our country step up in their professional and civilian lives every day to braid our society together. Think about the mitzvah mavens in our shul who make our community more than a collection of households, but a true family. And think about and share, especially if you have children around the table, what you and the other people at your table have done to braid the world together this past week. As you say the Hamotzi blessing and you lift up the challah, also lift up the acts of braiding that help our world heal. On this holy night, when we contemplate our lives, who we really are, and why we're really here, I want to remind you that this is what Jews do. We braid, we weave, and we piece together even what is broken. Like the strands of challah, we're here to intertwine our arms around one another, and yes, make the world a better place. Gamar Chatima.
Gamar Chatima Tova.